Welcome to the Central Innovation webinar where we're looking at SOLIDWORKS PDM. My name's Andy Rigby. I've been running 3D CAD tools, PDM and PLM solutions for around 15 years now. What we're looking at today is some of the functionality and capability around SOLIDWORKS PDM solutions, the benefits that you can get, your team can get, and your colleagues as well. Before we kind of show some of the PDM tools and get down into sort of a little bit of the usage side of things. What is PDM? So product data management. It's a tool that is going to manage your design data. So not specifically CAD data, but the CAD and associated documents as well. So it's a single straightforward solution. All of the necessary software is included with the PDM tools. There's excellent integration with SOLIDWORKS, so if you are a CAD user, that's good news. If you're not a CAD user, then things are even more straightforward. It's effectively an extension of Windows Explorer. I'll show some of these bits and pieces going forward, but just to sort of lay down what PDM is up front, worth running through this. So it extends the ability of the team to access the design data, share that, work on it, notify people, and secure your intellectual property. So it's a secure storage for all of that design data. So sort of stepping backwards to a certain extent, getting control of your CAD data. You may have been using CAD for quite a number of years. You've got a lot of data. Do you have control of it? You may well have. You may think you have, and you may not, or you may know that you need to get control of it. So some of the key benefits to using one of the PDM solutions going forward is making sure that you've got secure access, that you've got things like the right access to the data for the right users, reducing network traffic, etc. So those bullet points there are just the ones that were taken from the webinar description. So I'm going to run through some of those as we go. The PDM structure that we may have. So this is a pretty straightforward one. So we've got clients. Some of those clients are going to be CAD clients. There's the engineers and designers. Some of them are going to be other people who don't necessarily need to run CAD. They all connect to our PDM server, ideally a dedicated server. Where we have our database, we have the metadata, we have all the SOLIDWORKS files. That might not actually look a lot different from what you're doing now. All of the files are stored on a file server. It's not a PDM server, it's just a file server, and everybody connects to that. But that isn't necessarily a particularly secure way of storing our data. So let's have a look at what PDM looks like. It's not particularly sexy in terms of there's no CAD or anything on that front, but as far as usability goes, it doesn't get a lot easier than this. So I have a vault here. We'll initially just log in as a shop floor viewer perhaps. So this is where we have access to the right data. I can see the contents of the vault, and I can see that I actually only have access to a PDF folder. That is the only documentation I need as a shop floor viewer. I don't need access to the actual CAD data, and I don't have access to that either. Okay. It's easy to navigate. So this is effectively just Windows. When I'm using PDM solutions, PDM Standard or PDM Professional, I'm effectively just using Windows. So there is practically no learning curve there at all. It's embedded within Windows, so everybody, even if you don't use a computer very often, it's likely that you're familiar with how to navigate through folder structures. If we just want to make sure that I don't have access to information that I shouldn't, then as a shop floor viewer, if I drill down into a project folder and I shouldn't have access to, I can't actually see anything in there. I don't even know if there's any data in there. That's good. That's all I need. I just need access to that PDF folder. If we log out and perhaps just chain chats briefly, we'll log in as a different user with a password. So this is showing the security that we can assign to our data, in that I can't access to any of this information without having a relevant login. So we're protecting our intellectual property that way. We can see that the folder structure looks a little bit different now, so I have access to this projects folder. The shop floor viewer who was looking in here a minute ago doesn't have access. But we can see that we do have access. So even without SOLIDWORKS, the interface is clean and straightforward. It's effectively just Windows. And I've got a lot of information, perhaps to say more of a manager role or an approver role here maybe. I'm interested in what states particular files are in. I need to know who's working on what. We can see in this particular project folder, certain files are checked out. A particular user has taken ownership of those files and is working on them. We can see that what the revision looks like, and we can see what state the file is in as well. So popping back to getting control. So we are securely storing our data. We've already seen that I can't get the user's access, depending on who we log in as, we can get access to the right sort of data. As far as preventing the incorrect information from being used goes, is well, I can control the information as I add it to the vault as well. Our secure storage is down to our logins. Where else? There was something else that I wanted to have a look at on that list as well. Reduce network traffic. So actually, it was just the PowerPoint I wanted to have a look at. Going back to this one, I mentioned earlier on, so that might not look a lot different from our current structure, but one of the key differences is that all of the data that we're working on, even if I'm just a viewer, is stored locally. So if I'm a heavy CAD user, the files are stored locally. If I'm just a viewer, management role or beyond, and I just want to have a look at something in the vault, the files are stored locally. It's more relevant, I guess, for heavy CAD users. We're not constantly pinging the server for information. Network dropouts can have an effect on that. Corruption of files can be an issue. So I'm always working with local files. They're stored on the clients whenever I do something, when I add something, or whether or not I am working on a new set of files, they're copied to my local machine. So there's a duplicate copy on the server, and there's a copy on my machine as well. As far as the workflow goes, so again, kind of taking the manual stress out of, or traceability of what we're doing with our CAD data or design data, then the workflow can help us control that electronically through PDM. So when we add files, this is a straightforward workflow that we might implement to start with. They can get a lot more complicated than this, and they can replicate our manual processes. That's something that would be done up front when we're looking at an implementation. Just popping back to this slide again, say it's a straightforward, easy solution. So what happens when we do the deployment is we're looking at making sure that it works the way we want it to work. We want it to work from the get-go. So I'll say a workflow that might be good enough for one customer, not good enough for somebody else. But we can see that we add files, they go in at the top of this workflow, they go through pending approval, and then they go to release. Let's have a look at a little bit more detail on the sort of working front and have a look at the integration in SolidWorks. As the design user, I'm capable, I have the permissions to create new folders, so we'll go ahead and create a new folder perhaps. I've got some data outside of SolidWorks at the moment, or sorry, outside of the vault I should say. I'm going to use a simple copy and paste process. So I've simply copied files that are outside the vault and I want to put them into the vault. I get instant information here about duplicate files. So this is a key benefit. I can't add duplicate files to the vault, and it's almost certain if you're not using a PDM solution that can be an issue or is an issue, and then it's a case of, well, I've got 5 copies of the same file, I'm not quite sure which one of them I'm actually supposed to be using. We know there's a duplicate. Another key benefit to PDM is the ability to search for information, and again, this can be relevant for CAD users, for engineering users. I'm interested in finding out, perhaps in this instance, there was a duplicate file there. It was called something. We'll have a look for that file. So searching is instantaneous. I can find the information that I need straight away. Whether or not I'm searching for something like file name, I need a little bit more information on files that a particular user is working on, who's got what checked out, what state are all the files in a particular project. So we can see we've got a couple of files here. This one, I can even see where it is as well. It's in a standard part location. Selecting it, we get preview information. So as the shop floor viewer, we kind of skipped over this, but there's a lot more information we have access to without even needing SolidWorks. I can see the preview. It uses e-drawings. It's interactive. That's the file that's already in the vault. This is the one that I was going to add as part of that project. Okay, yeah, I can see that's an older version of the file. We're not using that one going forward. We can get rid of it. So easy to find that information. At this juncture, I may decide that I want to delete that particular file. Sure, you want to delete it? Yes, fine, that's gone. We can go back to our folder and add the rest of those files. So what I might do is check these files in. So I mentioned earlier on about working locally. I've added these files to my machine. They're not committed to the vault at the moment. Checking files in will allow access to those files for everybody else. So once they're in the vault, everybody else has access to them. We'll check those files in. And then if we drill into the folder, we can see they've all gone into that working process. What we want to make sure is that the file that we've already got in the vault is being used in this assembly. So I might just open up the drawing. So a quick double click. So as a CAD user, we can double click on a file and it'll go ahead. It'll ask us if we want to check it out. Do I want to make a change to this? Well, I do actually, because I know that I want to update the references. That'd be worth checking out the assembly and the drawing as well. A rebuild would be a good idea too. So now we can start to see the integration for the CAD users in SOLIDWORKS. So there's a task pane for PDM. We can see information in there about who's got files checked out, what state they're in, which version we're looking at. If we zoom into the drawing, we can see it's using that newer part from the vault already. I might just drill down and open up the assembly as well and have a look at it in there too. And we'll just hide a component, have a look at that. It's looking good. We're happy with the state of our assembly. How's it gone and picked up another file? Is it using the right file? Can we be sure that it is? Let's have a look at the references. It is. It's picked up the file from standard part. So that's just actually SOLIDWORKS is working in the background to help me with that. That's not necessarily a PDM tool. We'll save the assembly. When we do that, we can see now in the task pane, the file is newer than the one in the vault. That's useful information. We can also see which version of that worm gear that's being used, what that looks like as well. I will just save the drawing too. Again, notification in here that we've got a newer file. So at that stage, we might decide that we want to check the file in. Some useful tools here. We can add comments. So we've updated some references. So we'll put in a little bit of a comment in here. We could keep it checked out if I wanted to carry on doing some information or doing some changes, making some modifications. I might decide that I want to keep it checked out. At least if I check it in, then users can see the latest version. If it was just a metadata change, we might decide that overwriting the latest version would be fine. So we'll go ahead and check it in again. Updates in our task pane show us that we're now working with the latest version. So we're happy with things as they are in that file. Let's just pop back into the vault view. Another thing that we might have issues with is modifying files. It might be a good idea in hindsight actually to make sure that actually this file here is a common component, so it probably shouldn't go in the project folder. So it'd be useful perhaps just to cut that out. I don't want to store it in there. I'd like to store it in our standard components folder, which we're just getting to grips with, haven't done a lot with in the past. Or at least we're still adding data and we're quite fresh to it. If we go back to the projects folder, if we have a look at our SOLIDWORKS drawing and we have a look at what it contains, we haven't broken any links by doing that. So try doing that in just a file server. So you can see in the found in that it's instantaneously updated the links just by modifying the location of that file. Something else that we might do commonly is renaming of files. Again, I don't necessarily want to have to do that in SOLIDWORKS, and I don't have to. Pressing F2 on a keyboard is what you do if you were renaming a file in Windows. That's what I can do by renaming a file in the vault. We'll give it a part number. Actually, I might just do a quick copy. We'll give it a part number perhaps. And again, that's not breaking any links. Go back to the drawing, having a look at contains. It's updated that instantaneously, so the reference is not broken. I might want to change some of the metadata here as well. So we've had a look at preview, we've had a look at contains. Actually, just before we have a look at the data card, let's have a look at where used. If I was thinking about making a modification to this part, what impact is that going to have on Any other assemblies that it uses? I mean, in this instance, okay, it's only used in one assembly and there's one drawing, but that might give me, there might be half a dozen assemblies or more that this particular part is used in. That's something that I might want to get a handle on for an ECO process. What are we actually going to end up changing? Are we going to do it all up now, or are we just going to make a modification to a particular project? As long as we document what's changed, we'll know what we might need to do, updating stuff for other projects going forward. Let's have a look at the data card. So this particular data card, so there's a properties card. Every file has one. So we can access, what I might want to do is just make a quick modification. I want to check this file out. The document number we might add, that might just be the project number we've got going and then the part number. Again, some of the automation of this can be done via PDM Professional rather than PDM Standard. I might just do a quick paste as well because I copied the file name. That would be good for description. We'll save that file. And actually, we'll check this file back in again. And actually, I haven't really made any changes to the actual CAD data itself, so I'm just going to overwrite that version, and we just updated some properties. And we'll check it in. So no danger of the drawing and the assembly going out of date. It was using version 1 of this part. We can see the version number here in the columns in our vault view. Revision information too. So just to finish off kind of thing, we've got a little bit of approval that needs to go on. So I might decide I need to submit all of this for approval. So we'll tell our approver, can they please review that information? And we'll click on OK. And just to make sure that we've got proper access, actually at this stage, I can't myself manually go and push those changes through. I don't have permissions to do that. So we might just make a final change as terms of who's logged in. We'll log out to the vault and we'll log back in as a manager. If I could just type manager, there we go. So as the manager role, again, I'd like to get a handle on the sorts of things that I need to do. I'm not interested in running CAD, but I am interested in doing what I need to do, which one of my tasks is to make sure I can approve. And I'm across what needs approving. So I'd like to run a quick search again on anything that's in projects that in this instance is pending approval, because I need to go ahead and get a handle on that and run through what needs approving. So I can very quickly find that information out. I can review it. So I don't necessarily need SOLIDWORKS installed. I might be good enough just to be able to review it using e-drawings. We've got some measuring tools. We can use those. Once I'm happy that I've reviewed the documents, I can then, from this search dialog, push those files through and press the go button on releasing. They're approved. We can go to manufacture. So we'll leave that going. Let's pop back to PowerPoint for a second. So that workflow, say, may work for us. We may decide that we need a little bit more actually. Once we get to released, we might decide that we want to push through an ECO edit step, an ECO checking step, and then back to released. So there's a lot of flexibility with the workflow, and they're easy to visualize exactly what the process is and add steps to it. So perhaps now we have got a little bit more control of our CAD data. The benefits that we've got: fast implementation. SOLIDWORKS might just pop up in the background, but that's because our last step, so going from pending approving to released, is actually going to generate PDFs for us automatically. So that's why SOLIDWORKS just popped up in the background there. Fast implementation, so we can do an implementation via what we call a quick start. So that will be getting the PDM installed, getting it configured, so an agreement up front would be a statement of work. It's critical really to getting PDM installed and doing what you want from the get-go. Statement of work just thrashes out and defines exactly what it is that PDM will be doing. Low training requirement. Well, you've seen what the training requirement really is, and driving it from Windows, there isn't a lot there at all. It's configurable, so say if we don't like the workflow, we can change it, we can modify it to the practice that we want our CAD data and design data to follow. And we've seen the integration with SOLIDWORKS and how it looks in Windows Explorer as well. So is PDM Standard the right sort of solution for you? Do you need more? You might start off with, okay, PDM Standard does do what you want it from the get-go to start with. So, but there's a scalable, straightforward upgrade path between PDM Standard and PDM Professional. So when we're looking at PDM Professional, what might prompt us to go down that route? Well, have you got multiple sites? Do you need an office in Perth to communicate with the office that's in Brisbane? Do you need to share design data across those 2 sites? Do you want to give access, people access to PDM via Internet Explorer or Google Chrome? Would that be a benefit? Is there an ERP integration necessary? So do I need to get bill of materials information from CAD or from PDM and start getting it PDM talking to ERP and getting document numbers, file names and things like that from ERP back into PDM? If you're not quite sure the sort of, you may find that if you've been using CAD for quite some time that you do things on a daily basis that take a long time out of your day outside of actually designing things and engineering things. Do you spend a lot of time creating those PDFs? Would it be beneficial to do that automatically? Do you spend a lot of time searching for stuff? Do you spend a lot of time doing other things that say that you pretty much have a working process, that you've just got used to the way that SOLIDWORKS works along with data that's not managed, and you just get on with it and do it? If you'd like more on a sort of dollar value saving, we've got some calculators that we could help you realize the sort of saving you could get with a SOLIDWORKS PDM solution. So a return on investment calculator would be something that you might want to take a look at. What we need some cold hard figures that will help us justify justify and make a good business case for getting PDM into our business. So that is hopefully a reasonably quick overview for what SOLIDWORKS PDM could do for you. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to take those offline. You have my contact details there. Feel free to give me a call or email me if you would like to take that conversation forward, get a better understanding of exactly what PDM would do for your specific business. I'd love to have that conversation with you. Appreciate your time today. I hope you have a good weekend, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.